It might be better.
Two of them in the car right now. This is a very long day. So I cracked the windows and I was like 52 degrees is plenty.
Oh, yeah.
So I can grab them after the,
We saw our car on the flat coat.
Yeah.
We have a mix that is a dead on sort of like flat coat. I'm Michelle.
Nice to meet you. I'm Michelle. Great to meet you. Well, if you hang out afterwards, I'll pull mine out.
Very good.
It's always fun to meet fellow Black folks.
Good morning.
It's so great to have you all here on this beautiful morning together here at church, despite road closures and parking challenges and everything else. We come here because it is important and beautiful to be together. This is our second service on awe, following on the book that was written by Dr. Keltner. So our service today will pick up where the last one left off a couple of weeks ago, and we'll work to reorient ourselves for anybody who wasn't here 2 weeks ago. But here we go. This is the beautiful day we have been given, and everyone is welcome here at the First Unitarian Church of Providence. May we make the very most of this day, starting now, together. This is our time of greeting, so I invite everybody to rise in body or spirit and move around in your pews, move out of your pews, go talk to somebody who may be right next to you or maybe all the way across the space from you. Let's make sure everyone knows and feels how glad we are to be together and no one goes ungreeted or unwelcomed. Better. It's markedly better. And before we retake our seats, can we turn our focus to the cameras to the right of the organ, where everybody at home is tuning in? Hello, everybody near and far. It's good to be with you. We're glad we can be together this way. And Erica Russley, our worship associate, is going to lead us in the words for our chalice lighting.
This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights the way towards harmony, justice, and hope for all.
Our opening words today are taken from that poet of awe, Mary Oliver. It's her work, Some Questions You Might Ask. Is the soul solid like iron? Or is it tender and breakable like the wings of a moth in the beak of an owl? Who has it? And who doesn't? I keep looking around me. The face of the moose is as sad as the face of Jesus. The swan opens her white wings slowly. In the fall, the black bear carries leaves into the darkness. One question leads to another. Does it have a shape, like an iceberg? Like the eye of a hummingbird? Does it have one lung, like the snake and the scallop? Why should I have it, and not the anteater who loves her children? Why should I have it, and not the camel? Come to think of it, What about the maple trees? What about the blue iris? What about all the little stones sitting alone in the moonlight? What about roses and lemons and their shining leaves? What about the grass? Can we join in the words for our covenant that are printed in the order of service? All are always welcome to join us, and there is no requirement to speak these words, but everybody's welcome, visitors as well. We, the members of the First Unitarian Church of Providence, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the light we know by many names, and with gratitude for our deep connection to each other and to the larger web of existence, covenant to walk together in our search for truth, seeking the paths of wisdom, compassion, and justice. And our opening hymn is number 126 in the gray hymnal, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Can we rise in body or spirit and sing out as we are able? This is one that will be familiar to many of us, so it should be easy to hear ourselves.
We actually have an additional reading this morning, which I will begin with. This is an excerpt from Awe by Berkeley's social psychology professor, Dr. Keltner. Awe and culture are always evolving. Several thousand years ago, it was a time of everyday awe. Indigenous peoples found awe in relation to nature, stories, ceremony, dance, changing, song, visual design, and in states of consciousness beyond our ordinary ideas about space, time, and casualty. Lao Tzu would orient a continent to the mysteries of a life force, Tao, in nature. Plato would declare that wonder is the source of philosophy and the means by which we answer life's great questions, including, what is our soul? How do we find what is sacred to us? 2,500 years ago, accounts of mystical experiences, like those of Julian of Norwich, began to dominate the written history of awe from the Buddha and Christ until the Age of Enlightenment. This archiving of mystical awe in legends, myths, teachings, ceremonies, iconography, and temples would become a fabric of religions. Awe was transforming, at least in the historical record, into a largely religious emotion, reflecting our efforts to make sense of the divine and to build community in the face of violence, expanding trade, the breakdown of the family, and the privileging of self-interest over communal sharing. These ebbs and flows of awe's history offer another answer, alongside the evolutionary one, to the question, why awe? Because awe allows us to get outside of ourselves and integrates us into larger patterns of community, of nature, of ideas and cultural forms that enable our very survival. Tears arise in our recognition of those larger patterns that unite. And the chills signal to us that we are seeking to make sense of such unknowns with others. Our next reading is The Swan by contemporary American poet Mary Oliver. Across the wide waters, something comes floating, a slim and delicate ship filled with white flowers. And it moves on its miraculous muscles as though time didn't exist, as though bringing such gifts to the dry shore was a happiness almost beyond bearing. And now it turns its dark eyes. It rearranges the clouds of its wings. It trails an elaborate webbed foot, the color of charcoal. Soon it will be here. Oh, what shall I do when that poppy-colored beak rests in my hand? Said Mrs. Blake of the poet. I miss my husband's company. He is so often in paradise. Of course, the path to heaven doesn't lie down in flat miles. It's in the imagination with which you perceive this world and the gestures with which you honor it. Oh, what will I do? What will I say when those white wings touch the shore?
Going to sing Common Ground, which is a song by Jim Scott, who is a UU troubadour, and the refrain of it is in your order of service. And I'm hoping that after a couple of times hearing it, that you will join us.
Using his rising in the sea. Good morning, dear ones. We will now share the joys and sorrows that we carry with us in beloved community, and a reminder for those spoken joys and sorrows, and for those you may be carrying with you, there will be a lay minister in the back pew that you can chat with anytime, or with Reverend Liz and myself at any time. Today's lay minister is Joyce Buber. She's back there somewhere. From Erica Russley, A Candle of Sorrow, on the passing of my uncle Dave Townley, who just died on October 23rd. May his memory be a blessing to my aunt and cousins and all who loved him. From the Girl Effect Steering Committee, a candle of gratitude for the artists and buyers who made the art show last Sunday a smashing success. We raised $1,900, which will almost cover the tuition for 2 girls in Kenya next year. From Christy Iolo, a candle of hope that our democracy survives after November 5th. It is our practice to toll our bell when there has been mass shooting gun violence, and regrettably, that has happened twice this week. On Wednesday in Montgomery, Alabama, 5 people were critically injured. And on Friday in Washington State, 3 out of 4 family members were killed by a 15-year-old boy using his father's improperly stored handgun. Tragic. We will toll our bell in solidarity for all those who suffer from these shootings. We're going to incline our hearts and minds toward meditation and prayer and reflection. Let me remind you that if you've lost someone this past year, after the prayer, there will be silence, and you're welcome to stand or raise your hand so that we can share in silent tribute to those losses. This will be an original prayer. To begin, let us fully arrive. Please take a deep breath with me. One more. And one final breath. Spirit of life and love, dear God, we gather in reverence and thanksgiving grateful for the gift of another breath, for each moment of connection, beauty, and truth. Help us to take not for granted these graces, that we are loved just as we are, that we are connected with all that is, that we do not journey alone. Call us again to our commitments and covenants. Help us to love ourselves and each other, and to show that love in our words and in our deeds. Remind us that life and love are stronger than tyranny and fear, that a world made fair and just is ours to shape together. Let us stand in awe at that creation. Amen. Namaste.
I can still just remember the apartment my family lived in when I was a toddler in New Rochelle, New York. I remember something of the layout of that apartment, and that there was a small porch with a sliding door off of one side, and the porch had a chain link fence around it, and it was big enough for a very small plastic kiddie pool and a couple of chairs. And we often spent time out there when the weather was warm. But the pool is not what I remember about that porch. In fact, the only reason I even know it was there is because I've seen it in very old photographs from then. What I remember about that porch, what I remember loving about that porch, was the nest of tiny black ants that shared that porch with us. I remember lying on my stomach with my nose just a couple of inches away from the sandy pile of their front door and watching them come and go. Bustling and industrious, sometimes stopping to touch antennae with each other, sometimes just hurrying in and out, sometimes stopping to run their front legs along their antennae, which seemed like it was to clean them, I guessed. Though they were minuscule, they weren't carpenter ants, they were the really tiny ones. I remember how large they seemed when I lay there right in front of them, gazing on them, fascinated and attentive and patient, especially by toddler standards. Their energy and their diligence and their fastidiousness were astounding to me. They did not seem gross or bothersome, not threatening, not alien, not repellent, not unattractive. I look back on all the time on that porch that was spent not just observing them, but also admiring them and compelled by them. And I believe that was my first experience of awe. Such intricate marvels they were, astounding and wonderful. And this makes sense in the context of Dacher Keltner's book, because he says, flat out in that volume, it is a myth that awe is rarefied. It is a myth that awe is rarefied. In fact, his studies show that, if anything, plush lifestyle seems to undercut everyday awe and our capacity to see the moral beauty in others, or the beauty and wonders of nature, or the sublime in music and art. People feel huge awe, transformational awe, at small things, at what is all around them. Transformational awe at the extraordinary or ordinary things they see other people do. He names Joel Sonnenberg, who was badly burned at 22 months old when a man slammed his truck into Joel's car while he was trying to crash into a woman he knew. Joel required 45 surgeries. He was 22 months old. He required 45 surgeries just to survive his injuries. And after many years, there was a trial, and the driver was convicted. And Joel, who remains extremely physically scarred, was the last one to speak at the sentencing hearing, and he said, "This is my prayer for you, that you may know that grace has no limits. We will not consume our lives with hatred, because hatred brings only misery. We will surround our lives with love." So there was awe for the people who saw that in a courtroom. We may feel huge awe, transformational awe, at sacrifice or love or beauty that happen all around us all the time. A few weeks ago, in the first sermon on this topic and this book, we looked at what spiritual tools are available to us to help us navigate the intense and sometimes overwhelming challenges of these days we are walking through. Climate change and the future of our planet, our riven nation and the future of democracy here and around the world, and terrible conflicts across the globe, including the burgeoning war in the Middle East and its dreadful human cost. And a hugely important national election coming up in less than 2 weeks now, rising anti-Semitism everywhere, the future of a woman's right to reproductive freedom, the challenges to anti-racism and LGBTQ rights, and the bees, and the murder hornets, and the spotted lanternflies. I will stop now, but if you are like me, even just this brief list makes your blood pressure rise and your spirit shiver. We need all the tools at our disposal to keep us centered and sane and strong and brave and present and determined for our own living and for each other, to safeguard all the gains we have won, to stay strong for all that depends on our care and our commitment, all that is good and necessary and possible if humankind can just get a little bit wiser and a little bit less selfish and a little bit less immediate in our perspective. And one of the things that does all that gives us a bigger picture and a more community-oriented perspective and a kinder orientation is qualitatively proven to be awe. Awe that answers the question Professor Keltner poses: what is an experience of awe you have had when you encountered a vast mystery that transcends your understanding of the world? As we learned, his research shows 8 wonders of life which function, and I guess I should say, again, I did say this a couple of weeks ago, he is one of the foremost, if not the foremost, social psychologist in the country right now, and his work is highly documented, extremely researched, very rigorous. So when he's saying this stuff, he's not some sort of new age Berkeley wacko who's just saying stuff that sounds good or feels good. That is not who he is, and that's not what his work is. So his research shows 8 wonders of life which function as sources of awe for people around the world regardless of circumstance. Moral courage, collective effervescence, which remains my favorite, nature, music, visual design, spiritual or religious experience, life and death experiences, and epiphanies, which is another word for revelations. So Professor Keltner doesn't just study awe academically, he also continues to observe it and talks about this in his own life, starting with how he experienced it at the death of his beloved brother, to how it has powerfully informed his work with inmates at San Quentin State Prison. Multiple stories about men he has gotten to know there, and then admire, and then revere, enrich his book. Men overcoming all the odds and trauma and injustice of their early lives in that punishing and ugly environment, seeding and nurturing redemption and beauty into their own living and the lives of others around them. But in Professor Keltner's studies, he not only looks at what gives us awe, he looks at what we can do to better live with awe, to cultivate awe as part of our humanity and the fullest experience of life. And some of his findings are very surprising, including that vigorous walking, unfortunately it's vigorous, so you cannot just amble or stroll, but vigorous walking with awareness of awe, with an openness, looking and sensing what's around us, just once a week, reliably gives people an increasing experience of awe. Because unlike many hedonistic pleasures which diminish when frequency increases, right? Chocolate is a miracle to so many of us, but if you eat it all the time, you stop noticing it. But unlike many hedonistic pleasures which diminish when frequency increases, awe doesn't diminish when frequency increases. As he summed it up, the more we practice awe, the richer it gets. And the more we take an awe walk, which is what he calls them, the more our observance becomes less about us, more what's around us. He had people take cell phone pictures to document their walks. And in the beginning, all the awe people are like, right? And at the end, they were often, and he didn't dictate anything, at the end they were often not in the pictures at all. Or if they were in the corner, and the focus was on something else. He didn't tell them anything except just to take pictures during your walk. While awe includes diminished self-focus, in case the prospect might help motivate us, along with awe comes less anxiety, less depression, and greater joy. And I know from many conversations with many of you that that is what all of us are seeking these days. Less anxiety, less depression, more joy. To be clear, it is not just what we perceive, it's also about what we create, right? Even with the movement. Walking or dancing. Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr talks about movement as the secret of his team's success. Synchronized collaboration that is for him tied to moral beauty, including his own grandparents who built an orphanage for child survivors of the Armenian genocide while they were living in the Middle East. That's part of the ethos he brings to coaching. If you are familiar with him, then you know he is arguably unparalleled as one of the most successful professional basketball coaches of all time, who stands with uniquely public consistency and determination for racial justice and for human rights for all. For Coach Carr, this is all tied together by the idea that different individuals can be brought together to create something powerful and good. The default self is subsumed in something much larger, which is not just his team. It's also their fans. Fans whose movement, they're standing up and cheering and dancing joyfully when the team is playing well, he identifies as part of the whole, part of the recipe essential to their success. Along with movement, awe often arises from music. Musical awe is apparent all over the world in hearing music, in making it, in moving to it, or motionlessly drinking it in. And then there are what Professor Keltner calls sacred geometries. Quote, how our awe for visual design helps us understand the wonders and horrors of life. Paintings by the Dutch masters, visits to a concentration camp, being inside a soaring sacred space, or even received from encountering the most minute of sacred geometries, a cell under a microscope, or the unique patterns of snowflakes, or Persian miniatures painted sometimes with just a few strands of hair in the brush. Such tiny harbingers of vast mystery. Professor Keltner titles his chapter on nature Wild Awe and dwells on its saving power for people everywhere, its universal and awesome ability to heal us from trauma or despair, its timeless power to reconnect us even now when nature is challenged, its undeniable power to reconnect us as part of the whole, moving in a kind of unison with the land and the trees, with all that lives and exists naturally around us, with a sense of biophilia, which was a new word for me. Biophilia, love of life, which is not about self, it's about the opposite. The diminishment of narcissism and entitlement, instead loving and honoring living systems so much greater than we. This is what almost all of Mary Oliver's poetry is about, including that beautiful swan poem we heard earlier this morning, right to its breathless conclusion. Oh, what will I do? What will I say when those white wings touch the shore? Because what matters most about awe is that we feel it, but what also matters a lot is what we do to honor it when we feel it. As that conclusion reminds us, what will we do? What will we say in our moment of awe? When Professor Keltner finally gets to spiritual life which he believes grows out of awe, One of his sources, the Reverend Jennifer Bailey, speaks of her faith as composting religion. She means that she's taking all the stuff that has gone before, including women. She's African American, including black women whose faith was incredibly strong and sustaining during the civil rights movement. And she is a child of that generation and an inheritor of that generation. And she talks about, she believes her faith is reducing and recharging and reusing that faith of those who came before. And that is what she means when she says composting religion. Malcolm Young, who is now the dean of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, says he has no interest in creeds or dogma. For him, awe is about being with people in the most intimate moments of their lives, when someone dies or is born, or he is with two people getting married in that moment of marriage, or when he preaches on something brave and someone comes up crying and hugs him. All this is awe, sown in spiritual soil, spiritual humus. And in Professor Keltner's, first name is Dacker, in his inquiries and studies, he begins to use what he is learning to inform his own living, his own capacity for awe, his sense of relationship to his brother who has died years before from cancer, whose death is one of the most powerful awe experiences of Professor Keltner's life, and the one that charges him with his initial passion to explore and understand what this feeling is, what is it for, what it means in the broadest sense in the experiencing of life as a human being here and now. In the end, he believes that one of the most powerful capacities of awe is to help us understand cycles of life and death. Not every example he quotes is equally compelling and articulate. He is quoting people, again, from all over the world in all kinds of circumstances. So not everyone will resonate with everyone else's experience of awe. One person offers the birth of my second daughter, and she was a very pretty girl when she was first born, contrary to all other babies who do not look good recently born. But someone else writes about the same thing and expresses it this way: it was the birth of my daughter, the appearance in light of another person. It is a miracle. Life which you gave, pain which passed, for the appearance of a new person. The first cry, facing new life, I froze, dumbfounded. It is difficult to convey the feelings I felt at that moment. Professor Keltner dives into the work of Roshi Joan Halifax, a Zen Buddhist leader who specializes in contemplative approaches to death. Her principles are to allow the not knowing, because we truly don't know what dying is like for someone else. So observe and wonder, and then bear witness. Let the dying guide the experience and follow where it takes you. And finally, find compassionate action. Respond with caring engagement to any suffering. Transform it, and in so doing, be transformed. It is almost the soul's respiration and transformation, she says. We take in suffering, we offer succor. This is part of what informed Professor Keltner's time at his brother's deathbed and allowed him to perceive a kind of transcendence and awe visible in his brother's face in his last hours. It was an appearance that aligns with the descriptions of many people who have come close to dying and survived themselves. Even in moments of crisis, transcendent emotions like compassion, love, and bliss. Creation, birth, growth, decay, and death. The journey of all that lives for an instant or a century. It is so stark when we lay it out like that. It is too stark too leached of wonder that animates so much that lives, including all of us, too much missing those 8 wonders of life, the more to our existence that is beyond words, but that so many have perceived in every culture and every part of the world for at least as long as humankind has been able to record our experience. Summer ends now, wrote the brilliant 19th century English poet and Jesuit priest Gerard Manley Hopkins about this very season we are in, this moment, raptured by the world that he saw filled with proof of God. Summer ends now, barbarous in beauty. The stalks rise, the corn stalks, the stalks rise around, up above, what wind walks, what lovely behavior of silk sack clouds has wilder, willful, wavier meal drift molded ever and drifted across the skies? He concludes this poem, this tribute, with this same insights that Professor Keltner is writing about. And the azurous hung hills are his world-wielding shoulder, majestic as a stallion, stalwart, very violet sweet. These things were here, and but the beholder wanting, which too, when they meet, the heart rears wings, bold and bolder, and hurls for him, oh, half hurls earth for him, off under his feet. Awe locates us in forces larger than ourselves, Professor Keltner concludes with stunning concision. Awe locates us in forces larger than ourselves. I found that stunning. When I am trying to express something beyond words, I spend a lot of words along the way to failing to express it at all. But he succeeds. He did have years and years of research and people helping him. But just 8 words, one for each awesome wonder, maybe. Awe locates us in forces larger than ourselves. And what he has learned is that awe works as part of a system. It is interlocking processes that evolve and unfold, that recall us to awareness of all that is not certain, not predictable, all that is extraordinary and ephemeral, because either it or we will change and age and one day leave this life. And so attention must be paid. And awe tells us that. Awe calls us to all that is most powerful and most mysterious. Awe reminds us that the world is full of wonders and we are in relation to them and not the other way around. Awe brings us sustenance for living and depth in living anytime, any day, in any circumstance. Nothing is too bleak, too hopeless, too desperate for awe. Not prison, not frozen wastelands, not modern society with all our ills, not aging, and not even death. Awe is all around us with messages of hope and meaning that we must encounter and interpret for ourselves. But Professor Keltner assures us, and I agree, it is there, waiting for you, waiting for us, saturating our landscapes and our days with so much to offer and so little required, but a bit, even a bit, of time and attention. November is coming, winter is coming, and there will still be awe for us all, no matter what. So I close with the words of the 20th century American poet Robert Frost and his poem, My November Guest. My sorrows when she's here with me, thinks these dark days of autumn rain are beautiful as days can be. She loves the bare, the withered tree. She walks the sodden pasture lane. Her pleasure will not let me stay. She talks, and I am fain to list. She's glad the birds are gone away. She's glad her simple worsted gray is silver now with clinging mist. The desolate, deserted trees, the faded earth, the heavy sky, the beauty she so truly sees, she thinks I have no eye for these, and vexes me for reason why. Not yesterday I learned to know the love of bare November days, before the coming of the snow. But it were vain to tell her so, and they are better for her praise. Amen. Our second hymn is number 4 in your gray hymnal, I Brought My Spirit to the Sea. Can we rise in body or spirit and join our voices in song? Time for our offering, a chance to practice gratitude. The last time I preached a couple of weeks ago, I didn't even try to inspire you. I just pointed out that I was doing my best and I was high on a lot of medication and asked you to just please do what you could. And you totally did. You blew the offering out of the water. And I am still under the weather. But I had to drive myself this Sunday, so I am off of some of the meds, you can imagine. Please give all that you can to the life and the work of this beloved community, and thank you so much for all that you give and all that you do and all that you are.
Many of you are familiar with Pete Seeger, a hero of mine and probably of yours. He always taught this song to his audiences. He didn't write it, but he taught it. And so, in the spirit of Pete Seeger, please join us as you learn the chorus of Somos el Barco.
Somos el barco,
Among the many ways we have to practice our faith, not only on Sundays, there is a number of things to invite you to, including things on Sundays also. There are a bunch of music things. First of all, there is a very special organ concert this afternoon at 2 o'clock. As we think about the discernment process that we will follow concerning our organ and our music program, it is important for us to know about the great variety of music that can come out of an organ. So, Gigi Mitchell-Velasco is an outstanding organist, and she will entertain us this afternoon with a wide variety of musical styles. So be sure to stay after church. We have pizza, and feel free to join the trunk or treating that's going to be happening between the worship and the concert. And then the concert is going to start at 2 o'clock. We've got a screen because we're going to project close up what she's doing. She's going to talk a little bit about what she's doing and how she can create the sounds that we hear. So it is going to be unlike anything you've ever experienced before, and wonderful. I'm very excited for this. Second, don't forget to sign up if you want to sing with David Smith from November 14th to the 17th. He is the Grammy-winning music minister from our large Unitarian Universalist church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who comes out of the black church tradition, so he teaches in his style music that comes out of the black church tradition, out of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, and out of popular music, and we fuse all of those into a service. We've done this a few times with him now. We also have Pastor Howard Jenkins, who is coming up from his new congregation with a few members there, which is now in Moorestown, New Jersey. And they're going to be coming up to join us, and hopefully some folks from Bethel AME here in Providence as well with their new minister. And we're still working on that, but there's already 50 people signed up. It is such a great time. I'm excited because my sister and brother-in-law are going to come from the Boston area for that weekend for singing with him, which is a long-held dream of mine being realized. If you are not a singer, make sure you plan to be here for worship that day for what will absolutely be an amazing service, but I hope everyone will sign up to sing because everybody is welcome. You do not need to be able to read music, and it's such a phenomenal experience. Next Sunday, November 3rd, there's a congregational conversation after worship about the music program and the status of our music director search. The music and search committees will be bringing us up to date on how the search is going, and will answer any questions you can have. So make sure you put that into your calendar for right after church next Sunday. Plan to participate in our auction gala on November 9th. It is our only fundraising event for this year for the church. And it is such a fun way to spend an evening and to show your support for First U. Doors open at 5 o'clock. You can come and browse the items, have dinner. If you want dinner, there is still a little room, but you've got to make your reservation, so make sure you do that. Or you can just come for dessert and join in the raffle baskets, the silent auction, the live auction. Kids will all be having fun at their pajama party up in the auditorium, so there is fun for the whole family. The online auction and the auction preview will open this Wednesday, October 3rd, and there is still room for donated auction items and for volunteers. For all of these things, just call our marvelous Director of Operations, Nancy Forstrom, in the office during the week. Our benediction is one last Mary Oliver poem, the Buddha's Last Instruction. Make of yourself a light, said the Buddha before he died. I think of this every morning as the east begins to tear off its many clouds of darkness to send up the first signal, a white fan streaked with pink and violet, even green. An old man, he lay down between two sala trees, and he might have said anything, knowing it was his final hour. The light burns upward, it thickens and settles over the fields. Around him, the villagers gathered and stretched forward to listen. Even before the sun itself hangs, disattached in the blue air, I am touched everywhere by its ocean of yellow waves. No doubt he thought of everything that had happened in his difficult life. And then I feel the sun itself as it blazes over the hills like a million flowers on fire. Clearly, I'm not needed. Yet I feel myself turning into something of inexplicable value. Slowly, Beneath the branches, he raised his head. He looked into the faces of that frightened crowd. Can we join in the words for extinguishing our chalice? We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.
Mother, let's sing it twice.